No, I don't think open scoring, because open scoring is, I mean, we still do that. We do that to this day. We voice our opinions on Twitter all the time. So it's not like they don't see it, right? It's not like the judges don't see it at every one season. Then it's like, yeah, they should be held accountable, and open scoring is going to hold them accountable. No, you have to hold them accountable by firing them. That's it. And then hiring someone better. That's how you hold someone accountable. All right, let's break down the fights. I know this has been a long one, but I've had a lot to talk about. So 51 minutes in. All right, sweet. Awesome. Let's see how long these breakdowns go. So let's go ahead and early prelims, nothing. Not really have anyone to talk about here. All right, let's start. Blake Builder versus Kyle Nelson. I'm interested in this fight solely on the fact that Blake Builder, my MMA fighter, Isaiah, he got me onto this dude's coach, Flamin' Hot Mitts, who's very popular in the pound holding community. I figured out, and especially in the boxing community. He's great as far as watching him train and working with Flamin' Hot Mitts. I'm excited to see him fight and hoping that the stuff that he teaches also translates, and looking forward to seeing it translate in the octagon. Flamin' Hot Mitts, follow him on Instagram. He's great if you're interested in that kind of stuff. If you're training or want some extra content to look at. Ayman Zahabi versus Ori. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name. Quileng Ori. 24-9. So as far as experience, this guy's got more quote unquote. This is the Mongolian murderer. Weird name, right? He's a Mongolian murderer. Yeah, Mongolian murderer. So he's a murderer. He's a murderer that's Mongolian, not a guy that murders Mongolians, right? That would be a murderer of Mongolia. Anyway, that's semantics. Versus Ayman Zahabi, brother of MMA coach, one of the greatest MMA coaches, Faraz Zahabi. Very, very crafty fighter, just like Faraz is a very crafty coach. This is a very interesting fight in the sense of 35-year-old versus 29-year-old in his prime. Plus, he's got a lot of experience, but he doesn't have the same experience Ayman has. And Ayman's kind of been on a resurgence as far as decision over Ricky, KO. And he fights about once a year. I would like to know Ayman's contract for the UFC. If he only fights once a year and he's fighting at bantamweight. Has he always been a bantamweight? Yeah, I guess he's always been a bantamweight. So yeah. All right, and then you have Miranda Maverick versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. I like Jasmine a lot. She was fighting at CFFC when I went with Troy, and she was in our corner. She was the only one in the corner to win all night, so I'm a big fan of her. She lost her last fight, though, but she's fun to watch. No, wait, she didn't lose her last fight. She lost against Natalia Silva. She won her last fight, right? And Miranda Maverick, she lost her last fight. No, she won her last fight. No, she won. Erin Blanchfield, she lost. Okay, so it's been a while. So she's on 2-fight win streak, and Jasmine is on a 1-fight win streak. Great fight. I think that's a perfect placement for both of them. They're also talent-wise kind of in the same area, but this is kind of a not make it or break it, but you got 25-34. It's gonna be Miranda's grappling versus Jasmine's striking and her footwork, clinch work as well. She does good cage clinch work. And then I'm super excited about this fight. Nasruddin Imama versus Chris Curtis. Man, you lose to Sean Strickland, you got your next fight immediately. Chris Curtis. He's there to fight the last guy that Sean fought. So Nasruddin, hopefully he, learns from his last mistakes and actually throws this time and plays to a game plan. But, Chris Curtis having Sean Strickland in his corner and in his fight camp, he's going to tell him everything he needs to know about that fight. All right. So then you have Eric Anders versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Barriault just won his last fight, knocking out Julian Marquez. It was great. And then Eric Anders, always a fun guy to watch, but kind of like back and forth, wins, losses, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. So he just won his last. So, if you're betting, he won his last one. He goes on a win, lose. So, and then the return of Nate the Train versus Dan Ige. What a fight. It's going to be Dan Ige's one punch knockout power and heavy hands versus Nate's pressure. And, man, I like this fight. It's 3 rounds. So these guys are going to have cardio for both of them. But it's going to be about Nate not getting clipped so hard, but he is there to get hit. So that's why, as far as this fight goes, I think Dan Ige has a little bit of a slight advantage just because Nate's there to get hit, and Dan is not one of those guys that you want to get hit by. Mike Malott versus Adam Fugit. I like Mike. He beat Johan in his last fight, and then he knocked out. He's got great boxing, great striking, very, very technically sound all around as an MMA fighter. And then Adam beat Yosaku Kinoshita. Round 1 via elbows. Okay. But this is in Canada as well, so Mike's fighting home soil. I think the technicality and already a little bit more experience in the UFC, hometown, A-side, Mike, this is a fight for Mike to win. Looking to push to that 10-1 record. All right, so co-main event, Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. Even though Beneil is the older fighter, not by much, by a year. The experience in MMA obviously leans a little bit more towards Charles, so he is technically the older fighter in a sense. He's been fighting in the UFC longer and he has more accolades in the UFC. He's also been UFC champion. So Charles is obviously looking to make the next move up to UFC Gold, back to UFC Gold, and right the wrongs that he had in his fight with Islam. Whereas Beneil is trying to get that long-awaited fight with Islam that everyone is excited to watch. Beneil's jiu-jitsu. Let's start with Beneil. His jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. He's fought and competed at the highest level. I'm pretty sure he won Worlds 1 year as a brown belt. Could be wrong. And he obviously trains. He obviously trains. No-gi brown belt. Yep, I was right. He won it twice. He obviously trains striking with Rafael Cordeiro, King's MMA. So his striking is great. He's a southpaw, likes to throw overhand left, fake it to shoot for a takedown, yada yada, top control. He and Charles both had similar performances against Tony Ferguson. And their style is very similar. Obviously, Beneil is a southpaw, but his striking isn't as crisp as Charles. So the way I'm breaking this fight down, and when I look at him, Beneil obviously has that grit and toughness that gets him through in those Jakar close situations, right? He gets hurt, he fires back immediately, and then they can knock him out. I think, though, where he's going to have a lot of trouble with Charles and why this fight is a little bit harder for him is because unlike Islam, who's looking to shoot and gain top control and hold you down and then submit you or finish you through ground and pound. So it's a lot of like shooting. Charles doesn't really shoot. He'll go body lock, take you down that way against the cage. And then if you take him down, now you're playing jiu-jitsu. Beneil can shoot on him and try to hold position, but you're just giving Charles a chance to submit you. It's not like Beneil's jiu-jitsu is bad, but even being a world champion jiu-jitsu practitioner, Charles has different level MMA jiu-jitsu. Specifically for jiu-jitsu, Charles is very, very good. His cage work and all that with his jiu-jitsu, it amplifies his jiu-jitsu. So where I think Charles is gonna beat Beneil is in the striking exchanges. When they crash and then Charles likes to throw a left hook to clench and throw an uppercut, I think those are those moments, right? The inside boxing and the elbows and the teeps and all these things. Beneil's X factor is he's awkward. He's an awkward fighter. Being an awkward fighter does help. But he throws wide. And if you watch his film, he's got patterns. So Charles' easiest path to victory, and it also being a 3-round fight, is, teeps, jumping switch kick, like very linear strikes to keep from getting over the top. If I'm Beneil, I'm looking for the same thing that Islam did to him. Trying to counter, hook, cross, whatever. Try to catch him and then get on top and make him quit in that sense. And that's like where Beneil can do the best job. But I don't think... Whereas, like, for example, a Paul Felder fight. Paul Felder got on top and elbowed him. And I mean, it's different Charles Oliveira. But even Islam, same way. He beat Charles in the striking before he got him down. I don't think Beneil's as good in the striking that he's going to be able to do that. I think if he tries to get aggressive in the striking, Charles is going to catch him. But if Beneil leans on the awkwardness, then I think he can try to catch Charles and then, take him down and submit him or make him quit in that sense. But I think it's going to be very hard for Beneil. I think this matchup's a harder matchup for Beneil than Islam is. I think Islam, you know what you're going to get, and Beneil's very good at scrambling. When you just have a guy like Mateus Gamrot, like, you see how well Beneil does against someone like that. Charles doesn't shoot like that. And when you look at the people that he struggled with, I mean, they're all like, these are all great wins that he has, but none of these guys fight like Charles. Yeah, none of them fight like Charles. The ones he's lost to fight more like Charles. All right. I'm going to go Charles, but more of a Charles fan than Beneil. I don't know the odds, but I wouldn't be surprised if Charles was the favorite. Now, the women's bantamweight division. For the title, Amanda Nunes versus Irene Aldana. It was supposed to be Juliana Pena for the third time. She gets injured with like a broken rib. And so now we've got Irene fighting for the title in her place. That was the fight Amanda essentially won. Also, Amanda called this fight. Going back to Anthony Smith's thing, Amanda called for her next fight to be Irene. What do you mean she doesn't like this? She called for a new contender and someone who is stylistically a bad matchup for her. What do you mean she doesn't like? Anyway, enough of that. So going back to the fight. Stylistically on paper, this is kind of a bad matchup for Amanda. You have a girl who's got very good boxing, forward pressure, and when you look at Amanda's last loss to Juliana, despite the fact that her, she had an injury or whatever the case may be, she was beat by forward pressure and boxing. A girl that didn't let you breathe and just kept touching, and it put her on the back foot and made her very uncomfortable. The thing that Juliana has that Irene doesn't have, though, is wrestling. I think Irene said it perfectly. She's like, what do you think you have that is going to help you beat Amanda? And Irene says, I'm Mexican. I think that's a perfect analogy for her. Is like, you need that forward pressure. You need to put your hands on her and don't let her breathe because you can get her to quit. Other fighters have made her quit, and it's a you've seen it happen. Also, going off of the momentum of Alexa Grasso, she just beat one of the most unbeatable women in all of UFC history. And so kind of going off and like building off of that, doing the same thing to Amanda. And if I'm Irene, I'm beating Amanda in this division, and then the rematch I want at 145. However, the things that make me not want to lean towards Irene, even though stylistically I think she is a bad matchup, I think the things that push me more towards Amanda winning this fight, one, I'm from Salvador, so I'm biased. I'm from Bahia. I'm from where Amanda's from. I'm biased. But also, tools. The number of tools that Amanda has. She's got kicking. Irene throws 0 kicks. 0. She throws 0 kicks. Amanda throws kicks. She switches stances with her kicks. And if any fight showed me what the game plan is for this, if Irene starts crashing forward a little bit too hard, she'll take her down. I think Amanda will take her down. If Macy Chasson took her down, if Holly Holm took her down, Amanda's going to take her down. And I think that's what the game plan is. Not saying Irene doesn't have good jiu-jitsu or whatever. I just think Amanda's far superior on the ground. And she has shown that when a striker is out of her realm, she is willing to use MMA. So I think she's got, heavy hands. It'll make Irene, think. But anytime that there's a little bit of aggression going forward, I think she's going to take Irene down with different forms of takedowns, from knee picks to body locks to different things. So that way she can't just time double legs. I think Amanda wins this fight. I don't think it's an easy fight for Amanda, but I think it's either a fight of Amanda with dominance in a certain realm outside of, striking, like where she takes her down and she uses top control as dominance, or she submits her. The only way I see Irene winning is a situation with like the Juliana Pena, where she just starts hitting her and then Amanda breaks and then she can't wrestle or whatever, or she stuffs her takedowns all of a sudden. Irene Aldana's like stuffing takedowns. But when you look at the 3 of 8 takedowns, 5 of 14 takedowns, you can take her down. And I think Amanda is going to have a good chance of it. 1 of 6 takedowns. 0 takedowns, but beat her on striking. Okay. But that's what I mean. Is like she used takedowns to set it up. But those are my picks for. She's also 35, so it's like as age goes, she's not that much older than, or not that much younger. They're the same age. So my picks, as far as what I think: Amanda, Charles, Mike, Dan Ige, and Marc-Andre Barriault. Oh, so I'm not even going to leave from this side of the list. All A side, if you ask me. This card. All right, those are my picks. I hope you guys enjoyed. I would show you the website, but right now, it's actually going to go live today, but we're going to have a whole new website, so please go check that out. If you're in Charlotte, remember, come check out Southern Scrap Nation. Our team's building. We've got a couple fighters. They're fighting in August now. 3 of them. And then we have Troy professionally fighting in July, end of July, for A1. Guys, enjoy. Southern Scrap Nation. Remember, like, subscribe. Please give a comment, review, whatnot. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. And until next time, next week, I've been your host, as always, Daniel Jonas. Peace.